Okay, so now this video, let's look over the same. It's a different problem. I set up the functions differently, but let's go over this, right? So this here, let's look at the parts of the function. So this part here is a declaration. It's a function declaration. I declare my function. Here is my return, which gives a value. Right? I need a value. And in the middle here are my calculations. Okay? So the calculation in the middle, my declarations at the top, and my returns here. Now in the previous example we used was, notice that here is our declaration. Here's my value, right? I'm giving the function a value, but where's the calculations? My calculations are in the middle, right? So in this example, I really have no calculations, right? So now if you go side by side, you can see no calculations versus calculations. It's pretty clear, right? So here again, value, decorations, calculations, and there's calculations in the middle. So now let's go through this problem, okay? What are the function declarations? My function declarations are here and here. So function 1, again, and then function 2, right? But if you really want to write it out, you really need to write it out as function 1. So you gotta have to write this part out. Function 2. That is a... Now, what are my calculations? Okay, my calculations for each of the functions for function 1 is this: n equals 5, n2 equals 10, and then z is equal to n1 plus n2. For function 2, here are my calculations. n1 is equal to 5, n2 is equal to 10, and z now is n2 minus n1. So have you noticed that you are using the same, n2 is equal to n2 minus n1. Have you noticed that these are now the same? Okay, you have an issue. So wait a minute, how does this work, right? How is it that you can use the same variables for each one? Because the constraint of the function is that it localizes the variable, where these variables here have nothing to do with these variables here, even though the same. So this is a local variable. Here it's a local, again, it's a local variable. Okay, so just because they're the same doesn't mean they have anything to do with each other. It's localized here and it never comes out. So the n1, n2, z values never come out unless with that return. Again, the n1, n2, z doesn't come out. So one does not affect the other. Okay? Okay. So now what determines the values for each of the functions? Well, your return determines the value. So for your function 1, right, I have a return of z. Right? And for my function 2, I have a return of z. Now again, these z values are separate because they're all localized. Even though I call it the same thing, they're irrelevant. Okay? Now, what are the values for each of the returns? So now let's go through the math. Okay? So to really understand this, you will understand this. So for function 1, what is my value? So I put n equals 5, n equals 10. So this is 10 plus 5, which is 15. So I'm going to return 15. So the answer is 15. Okay. Here again, my n is 5. So now this is 10. This is 5, right? So 10 minus 5 is 5. Equals 5. So I'm going to return 5, right? It looks really bad. I need to probably here 5. So now for function 2, my value is 5. Even though the variables are the same, look how you get different answers. Okay, what are the function calls? So let's look at what are the function calls, and then let's look at the output. So let's observe, okay? So let me move this up a little bit, okay, for your convenience. Okay, here are my function calls. This is a function call. This is a function call. This is a function call. This is not a function call. This is setting x equal to a value. This says y equal to a value. So this equal sign here is not a function call. So look for it by itself. Here, my x value is what? Function 1. Because there's no equal sign, you assume that it's being called. So this is a call. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my function 1 is called how many times? It's called 3 times. So I put pi times 3. My function 2 is called how many times? 1. Just once. 1. Okay? So now what is my output? My output, I simply observe the print. What is my print? My print is function 1, which is 15. That's my output.